But what astounded me most was when life was hanging on a thread, he sent a message out to all of us. Those of us, it was so intensive, quite the session that we had. Pujas after pujas after pujas. They were organized for Brother Wei Tatt to pray, to seek blessings for his well-being. I'm actually quite amazed at the number of pujas that they carried out. It is only those who have that kind of merit who have that number of pujas. And the most amazing thing that came out of it at that time, when it was so intense, was a message from his wife, Cheng Kun, a message from Wei Tatt for all of us. The words were, "Don't be sad for me." At that time, he had already had one leg amputated. "Don't be sad for me, send me positive energy." That blew me away, because I would not know if I'm in that kind of position, what would I be? But he later told me that it is because of the Dharma, it is because of the novitiate program that gave him such strength. And having heard that, I told him, "Wei Tatt, you must share this story. You must inspire every one of us what it meant to be when you are challenged like this, and to have the Dharma by your side." For all of those of you who do not know Wei Tatt, I describe him as an extraordinary person, but in his normal life, I knew him to be a property manager at one time, a restaurant owner. He was operating a restaurant. Then, before his accident, a photographer. I mean, look at the shots that he has taken. He will freeze the moments for many a newlywed couple. And he's still doing that now. So, I will leave him to tell you this story, the story of how the Dharma saved his life. Brothers and sisters, Brother Wei Tatt, without much ado, Brother Wei Tatt, can you please tell your story as it is?
Hello. Good evening, everybody. Venerable, yeah. Brothers and sisters in the Dhamma, as well as I understand there are other people of other faiths, attending this talk. Firstly, it's I think the word Dhamma Talk is very imposing. So I just want to use this as an opportunity to share. I want to start by thanking many of you, who have prayed and have thoughts of my well-being in your mind, And I think I would like to start this talk by thanking all of you. I've prepared some slides, and I think in due course, we I'll be able to show some of the, images that, just to sort of give you some context of what happened to me. So let me start by sort of laying the picture of what happened and what is sort of led up to today. I was back in Sungai Petani, back at my in-laws' place. That was on Chinese New Year of this year. That's in February. On the second day of February, we've eaten enough. We've had met all the relatives. We've done all the sharing. We've had the late nights. So Tuesday was the second day of Chinese New Year. My wife's brother has a paraglider. It's actually like a parachute with a motor at the back. Yeah? So he asked me, would I like to go and take photographs at the Bujang Valley, from an aerial view. So like at that time I didn't have any idea, like of any sense of any danger at all. I took my camera and we went out. So I guess that's a lesson in life. Life is very uncertain. We were on a field one moment. The paraglider took off, and I think within less than 30 seconds, we realized something was not right. We were not gaining enough altitude, and the pilot. I was actually in tandem, so I was actually a passenger in the paraglider. So when we had a freak wind and we lost altitude, and next thing I know, we hit the side of a building. I think I must have fallen sort of like probably from a two-story height onto the ground. And I think amazingly, I was still conscious at the time. I could see my legs, I could see my bones. I think like some of you have seen photos of me in the Chinese papers. For some reason, the Chinese papers always have the most gruesome pictures. And somehow like I was. Some of people actually saw me in the papers. I've not seen the paper myself, but they describe it as quite a terrible scene. And and this was Chinese New Year, so the medical services were a bit slow in actually getting to us. I believe it sort of took them almost an hour before they actually came to me. Strangely enough, when I actually had my accident, immediately I went into my breath. I've been an on and off meditator, and that's something that came from the days of my novitiate. Immediately I went to my breath. Automatically I went to my breath. And immediately I actually had to calm. I was actually calm enough to actually pick up my handphone and call my wife to tell her, Cheng Hun, I've had an accident. I'm at Taman Ria. It's not good. Please come and get me. Yeah, please call emergency. So then I was actually taken to Sultan Amina Hospital in Sungai Petani. That was and imagine within the 2 days. I was in ICU. I think nobody actually imagined how bad it was. But I personally had the feeling that it's not something trivial, and I think I immediately I start feeling that this is not something that's going to be easy for me to get through. Within the first 2 days of my stay at the hospital, we transfused 20 bags of blood. Yeah, if you imagine, I think the human body has about 15 pints of blood, and I managed to transfuse 20 pints of blood in those 2 days. And so basically what had happened is both my legs were crushed, and the whatever blood they were pumping through me, it was actually just bleeding out through my legs again. Because it was Chinese New Year, they could not attend to me as quickly as it would be medically possible. Ideally, if you ever have a major accident, the first 6 hours is very critical. If you have operation within the first 6 hours of your accident where you have a major wound, the likelihood of what they call the infection in the blood is very low. In my case, I think that was well over 12 hours before they operated on me. And the doctor that operated on me, unfortunately, it was Chinese New Year, so a very junior doctor attended to me. So they operated on me, and then later on I came out, and in and out. I think in the total course of my hospital stay, I've been in and out of operations for operating theatre about 7 times. Yeah. So for me is I was in Sultan Amina Hospital in Sungai Petani for 1 week. Later on, I was transferred to Island Hospital in Penang for another week, and then finally I was transferred back to Ampang Putri in Kuala Lumpur after 2 weeks. During that period of time, my condition was extremely unstable. my BP was way below normal. By the first week, I think my kidney had taken enough. It had decided to pack up. So my kidney wasn't working. After a week, my platelet was going down, and as you know, with an open wound, if your platelet is not sustaining, you keep bleeding. Because my kidney wasn't working very well, my creatinine was going up as well. So I'm able to speak about all these things. I'm not a medically trained person, but having had the first-hand experience in my personal encounter, I hear all these numbers, and I don't know what they mean, but the whether the number is bigger or smaller, from day to day, it's important, So I think at one point my platelet count went below 50 or something, ridiculously low, and I understand the normal for a platelet is about 200. So so that's sort of like the situation I was in after 2 weeks. Yeah. So before I actually go on to tell you about I've just told you how things happen and how things went downhill, and how things were not. For me, after 2 weeks, was quite an incredible journey for me. So I just give you a bit of context. I just going to pause there and just go back, back to 2007. 2007, I just came back from Canada. I've had I had a successful career as a consultant. So I had enough of Canada. I decided I wanted to come back and sort of I was a bit lost in terms of work, in terms of life, in terms of where I wanted to go. I think I was a bit lost at the time, yeah. And as a person that's exploring religion, I've always been quite open, yeah. A family, we've had come from a Buddhist family, but we basically, we follow all the rituals, on Chinese New Year. We follow all the traditions. We follow all the, and my mom is here at the moment, from Penang. So as you imagine, any Penangite would have a lot of pantang larang, a lot of things that we can or cannot do, what colors we have to wear, what we should eat, and all that. Yeah? So, but and we've sort of have sort of a bit of ingrained, that that there's always spirituality is always important. Yeah? In university, I was in UK, and again, I guess the flavor of spirituality in the UK is very much a Anglican Christian kind of background. With the Anglican Christian kind of background, is very, again, if I've been to the churches and all that, it's very methodical. It's almost like a Catholic church, and then the teaching is very open in the sense that it's up to you whether you want to whether you want to follow or hear. There's no sort of sense that that it's something that's sort of pushed against you. But again, I think a lot of teachings that I learned during those times opened my mind up in terms of it's important to be spiritual. I've worked in Singapore as well, and in Singapore, I think the flavor, again, I think there are a lot of charismatic Christians there. And again, the teaching is very different. Again, it's very much a lot of sharing and a lot of people telling you their life experiences in terms of difficulties and how they've overcome that through religion. So at this point in 2007, I met Sister Malini, who's here today. And she's someone that's very kind-hearted, very open. It does a lot of dana, and even then I didn't know what dana is. I didn't know what Buddhism was, and basically my idea of Buddhism wasn't much that so well developed in terms of like knowing the life of the Buddha and actually knowing, you know, the teachings of the Buddha itself, and actually understanding the role of the Sangha, the Dhamma, as well as us as practitioners. So like I happened to go with Sister Malini, and she brought me to a house dana at Bhante Mahinda's place over at Sapute. Yeah? You know, so imagine, you know, I went there and I was just. First time I've gone through these rituals of, you know, like prostrating and offering food, and I felt, you know, very comfortable, you know. Felt very comfortable, you know, even though, you know, like it involved, you know, some practices which that was very unfamiliar to me. Yeah? So and then I think I went for a few more times, and I think like Bhante somehow, you know, Bhante is when he looks at you, you know, it's very, very engaging, you know. Somehow he looked at me and said like and started asking me a few questions, you know, who are you, what do you do, what you do. You know, he suddenly, a light bulb sort of came up, you know, like pointed to me and said, you have to come for the novitiate. Yeah? You know, I say, you know, I sort of went backwards and went back, and then later I asked Sister Malini, what's a novitiate? You know? But by then I already like committed, yes, I'm going to take part in it. Yeah? So later find out a novitiate is actually a temporary ordination as a novice monk, you know, in the Theravadan tradition. And this novitiate was, later I found out how special it was. Yeah? This was 2007. This is the last novitiate that was led by Bhante Mahinda at the Buddhist Vihara in Brickfields. And I think that year we were very fortunate because, you know, we had quite a large attendance. I think close to about 100 over, you know, like novices and upasakas. We had a lot of speakers coming from other temples, Sri Lanka. I think we had like we had a Bhante from the US as well, you know. Coming to speak, you know, and we actually went through a very, very intense and very, very comprehensive course, you know, in Dhamma in that 2 weeks. Yeah. And for me, you know, like I think everything in life happens for a reason, yeah. For me to have met Sister Malini, for me to have like connected with Bhante Mahinda, you know, for me to have actually been, you know, like being sort of like shoehorned into the novitiate. This is another story I want to say. You know, the Bhante took my novice form, signed it, Bhante Mahinda, and then told me, you go to the Vihara office and enroll. I went to see Sister Bodhi, you know, I had my form in my hand, and said, I want to sign up for the novitiate. She tells me, you know, it's already full. The application is already closed. So I took my application form out and I showed Sister, you know. And then she saw like it was Bhante Mahinda that signed off as my sponsor. She said, okay, we make space for you. Yeah. So like in that 2 weeks, I learned basically the basics, you know. The Four Noble Truths, the Eightfold Path, you know, the practice as a monk, you know, how and you know, like in that 2 weeks, not only do you learn, you know, you actually practice as well. You know, we wake up at 5 in the morning. You know, we have chanting at 6 at our Soka Hall. You know, that would, you know, like continue with a meditation session. 30 minutes to 45 seconds, 45 minutes of meditation, followed by our own time, and then we have go for breakfast, and then later on, we go for Dhamma classes, and then, we have the main meal for the day, yeah, that's going to last us throughout the rest of the day, yeah, and it's, when you're actually learning Dhamma in the class, it's like, you learn the Four Noble Truths, you learn things like that, and you intellectualize it, it's like reading a textbook, but unless you practice it, it doesn't actually, you don't internalize it, you don't actually appreciate it. I give you an example of one practice that I still continue today, mindfulness in eating, whenever we eat, I think, in the past, like the food in front of us, we start gorging, we eat, the taste sensations are there, we enjoy the food, next thing you know, it's gone. You have the satisfaction that, for about an hour that the stomach is like nice and comfortable and warm, and very likely you'll forget about it, But I think when you actually practice mindful eating, firstly, you actually, before you actually partake in the food, there's a, you actually chant to say, what's the purpose of the food? Yeah? The food is for us to actually provide, nutrition, sustenance for the body, in order for us to actually continue our practice, So I've always remembered that, and so, ever since that 2 weeks, that teaching, has allowed me to eat more mindfully, not only in terms of thinking from it from as a sustenance for me to practice, but also, I think I eat healthier as a result. I actually be mindful what I eat. I actually be mindful whether it's good or bad. Whether it's something that I'm overindulging in, or something I'm eating not enough of. Yeah? And even to the point that we don't overeat, because we are mindful about the eating. Yeah? So just example of the practical nature of like the novitiate practice. So my advice to anybody that's here, that haven't gone for novitiate, do take the time to research and participate in a good novitiate program at least once in your life. Yeah. For me, it's, as I say, everything happens for a reason. I believe, my reason for having gone through the novitiate is to prepare me for what happened to me, in February of this year. If I did not have that 2 weeks practice of a novitiate, I'd be a very different person in life. And I don't think, I would actually, face, this, challenge, this major challenge in my life, with such strength and determination. And it's not something that I had to fight. I had to fight, for my life, but I was very prepared for it, my wife is here today. I really have to thank my wife today as well, because, all throughout, my imagine, when I was in hospital for over 2.5 months, she was with me every single day. She didn't miss a single day. Yeah. And every night we chanted, every night, every day, we connected with people, and so strongly, I believe, like when we fall sick, when we have physical, medical problems in life, the physical part is just one half of it. The mental part is the other half of it that's very important. Yeah. So for me, I'm just going back, okay, so that gives you, I'm telling you a story of my novice days, yeah? Because I believe those 2 weeks gave me the tools, the teaching, for me to actually survive the 2.5 months. So I'm going to go back to the where I left off. Yeah? After 2 weeks in the hospital. After 2 weeks in the hospital, I was still at Island Hospital. I think within the first week in Island Hospital, they said that they had to amputate my right leg. Yeah? Because my kidney was already packing up, I was already on the dialysis machine. The doctors didn't know whether my kidney was going to recover. But you know what? My wife, I understandably was very upset that the doctors wanted to amputate my leg. Yeah? Forms was all ready and all that to you know. When the doctor presented me with the form, I did not have any fear, you know. I did not have any sense that I was clinging. I was prepared to let go, you know, because I knew life was important. Immediately, I took the form. I told the doctor, "You do what you need to do." I signed the form in front of him. Yeah, I was conscious of what he had to do, yeah? You know. So you know, like the even after they amputated my leg, the next day the doctor came to see me after his rounds. You know, I thanked him. Yeah, I said, "Doctor, thank you." Yeah. And I'm amazed, you know, that I did not have any sense. I could just let go, you know. At that point in my time, you know, I think the first thing you let go is life. When you have something like that, is, you know, you let go. You know, like material things, you let go. You know, any sense of importance that you have, you let go. You know, like, you know, Facebook or whatever social media that you're so, like, you know, so attached to on a daily basis. All those things are certainly not important at all. Yeah? You know, the only thing that came into focus in my life, you know, after I had my fall was, you know, first thing, you know, I came back to my breath. You know. So I think the meditation, you know, whatever meditation sort of like skills I developed as a novice monk, you know, immediately, you know, I fell back on it. You know, the moment I came back to my breath, you know, I could manage my pain. I could manage my pain, you know, I could clear my mind, you know, I could think straight, you know, I could, you know, like prevent myself from thinking, you know, all sorts of bad thoughts. You know, I can sort of, you know, bring, you know, the you know, I could, you know, do my chanting. You know, I could do my iti piso bhagawa. You know, I can, you know, I can, you know, like recollect, you know, the nimitta of the Buddha image on my altar. You know, and all that I think is important because, you know, like, it's very easy for the mind to start wandering and start thinking bad thoughts and thinking how bad this can possibly be. That's always at the back of my mind, but that's not what I focus on. Yeah? What I always focus on is, you know, how to get better. You know, and I think that's very, very important in terms of, you know, how of part of my recovery. I think we're going to run a bit late in terms of time because we were fumbling a bit, but I just bear with me, yeah. And I try to finish this off because I have a lot to share, and I have a lot to share, you know. And I hope whatever I share, you know, like even if I can actually help someone else, yeah. I think that the value in this sharing would have seen its purpose. along the way, I did feel a lot of spiritual guidance. And then this is where I would share with you quite openly, like I think my mother would go to the, the takeaway, takeaway, yeah, and they would actually provide some guidance in terms of like you ask questions and they would actually guide us all. And I have another guru, that would actually, that I have a connection with, that would actually tell me certain things as well along the way. Yeah? Now this is second week, coming to my stay in Penang. Towards the second week, the doctors did not have. They've had me on dialysis. My condition was very unstable. They could not really transport or move me. And the doctors were actually considering they need to actually amputate my left leg now. By this time, I was actually, the toxin level in my body had already risen so high that I was already going in and out. I was hallucinating. Sometimes I'm lucid. Sometimes I'm just sleeping. And there was one day, I think it was either Wednesday or Thursday or something like that. I think the doctors came and they said they wanted to amputate my leg. The guru that we consulted told me, wait one more day. My mother, who was going to take her away, basically said, the chum that came back said, there's no need to be so, there's no need to take such drastic action just yet. And basically this, guidance like that is very open-ended. You don't know, it doesn't tell you exactly what to do. So we leave it up to faith. I waited one more day. The doctor wanted to amputate on that day. We waited one more day. Second day, the doctor came to me in the morning and told my wife, his condition is stable. There's a window of opportunity. If you want to transfer him out now, you have to do it now. So it all happened, despite everything, my sister, who's a doctor, arranged an ambulance from KL to come and pick me up. My condition was such that I cannot go in any normal ambulance. It had to be one with all the medical equipment, the scopes, the cardiac machines and everything, because, they might have to, be prepared for any eventuality. So my sister came, took me from Island Hospital in Penang, transported me to Ampang Putri in Kuala Lumpur. Ampang Putri is not an obvious place that I would have chosen. But strangely enough, I felt that was where I belonged, because when I got there, I had the right doctor, I had the right physician. And the care of the nurses there, the level of compassion that they showed was just amazing. I felt comfortable, I felt that I'm finally in the right place for recovery, And again, that was, I would say that decision was somewhat, divine, It's not an obvious place to be, but I ended up there, And again, I don't think everything happens for a reason, I was meant to be there, My doctor at the time, every other doctor I've met beforehand, basically wanted to save my life at the expense of my limb. The doctor I met, that doctor, Datuk Said, looked at me. The first time he saw me, he looked at me and said, I've seen worse. Can you imagine what that felt like? After 2 weeks, he tells me, I've seen worse. Yeah. So, that was the beginning of my actual recovery, I was in ICU, I was in for almost 5 weeks, It's an isolated ICU, not an open ICU that you see. I was in the ICU where I was alone. There were 2 doors, and at any one time, only 2 people can come and visit me. And I had a lot of time to myself, so, the meditation practice actually helps, I could meditate, I could think positive thoughts. I could radiate matter to my leg, I could radiate matter to my kidney, I could imagine myself sort of like, getting better. So, gave me strength, gave me hope, gave me a lot of, and time was passed a lot easier, All the doctors and nurses are quite amazed, I have an incredibly high threshold for pain, Imagine if you can see my wound today, it's basically an open wound from the top here to right to the bottom on both sides, And basically they had to do the dressing every alternate day. The dressing was done without any anesthesia. Me completely conscious and the doctor, talking to me, in a very casual manner while he's dressing my leg. And one of the reasons they didn't want to administer any more anesthesia is because, I've gone through so many operations. They want to save that for a rainy day. The thing with anesthesia is the more you use it, the less effective it is, and the more side effects there are, later on. But, whenever the doctor sort of did his procedure on me, I basically just, went and, start, immediately I fall back to my breath. The pain, you could feel it, but it wasn't so intense before because, the point of focus was not the pain, but, my breath, And, it's amazing, it actually works, It actually works. You can ask my sister, my mother, my wife, my doctors, my threshold for pain was quite, it even amazed me, because I've never gone through this sort of an ordeal, and then for me to be able to endure this on an alternate day basis, and still smile about it, I think, I really attribute this, to the fact that I had practice enough, to be able to always fall back to my breath whenever I need to, and it's always there. It's always there. It's always stable. It's always predictable, and it's always present. So whenever I fall back to my breath, I don't think about the past. I have no regrets. I don't think too much about what's going to happen. I think about what I can do now to get better. The other thing that happened in that ICU room was that I was very touched and gave me a lot of encouragement that a lot of people were praying for me. Obviously, my parents were praying for me. All the people, my friends were praying for me. They had a Bodhi Puja at the Buddhist Vihara, and apparently, about 40 people turned up. They had 1, 2, 3 pujas. Quite a number of pujas. Aloka had people from Aloka were praying for me. in KL, in Penang, in Malacca, in Sydney, in Singapore, And when my wife was showing me all the photos and of people praying for me, I was so touched, so I cried, and the tears of joy, like I really, really, it's like there's so many people rooting for you, and like I think, and I think some of the energy that I felt, the energy that I had in the ICU was through the result of all this, positive prayers that came through. I think that's one of the benefits I can see with social media these days. It's very easy to get people together. And the thing about prayers and thoughts is, you don't need to be physically there to be able to think well of someone and to be able to transfer merits and to be able to, affect a good, positive energy to someone. You just have to have it in your thought to think well, to imagine the person in a healthy state. And I think, somehow the mind is able to connect and receive that energy. I mean, I sincerely believe in it because I've had so many, and every time like I hear about a puja in a room about that, it lifts me up. I have new energy. I have new resolve. I feel stronger. I feel more determined. So after about 2 weeks, 3 weeks at Ambang, my condition got a bit worse and then got better. But there was one particular day, this was like a Wednesday, this was somewhere between the week, where suddenly out of the blue everything went bad. My breathing, I was struggling to breathe. I was hallucinating. I was shaking in bed. The doctors didn't know what to do. My ICU was such that I faced a set of double doors. Outside the first set of double doors, there's sort of like a nursing station. And when I had this condition, I looked out. I knew it wasn't good because I could see 5 or 6 doctors conferring with each other, 6 doctors, I had the orthopedic surgeon, I had my physician who was nephrologist who was looking after my kidney, I had a heart specialist, I had a neurologist, I had blood specialist, 1, 2, 3, 5 there, and there's one other specialist with a long title. I had a respiratory specialist as well. All scratching their heads outside. Imagine talking to each other, scratching their heads, and didn't know what to do with me. Again, I think we had a guru told me on that day. If I'm not mistaken, that was a Wednesday. A guru told me, "You pass through a gap." You pass through a gap. You pass through this gap and you'll be okay. Sure enough, on that day, my father came and prayed for me and brought a Buddha image, a small Buddha image, and put it at the corner of the room. My father. My brother-in-law came and prayed for me as well. My brother-in-law, this is the one that had the accident with me. He also broke his leg, His injuries are not as bad, but, nevertheless, for him to have come to the hospital to pray for me is a very big, it's a very big sacrifice on his part. And this all just happened, And Bhante Sri Dhamma from the Vihara was supposed to conduct a Buddhi Puja at the Vihara. And instead of conducting his puja there, Thomas, one of my friends, brought him to my hospital room. And he did a set of pujas for me as well. I believe he did a Bojjhanga Sutta, and then he did a Metta Sutta for me, as well as other pujas. And he could see, that I had, for some reason, my mind was not clear that day. I had fear. But after the pujas, I calmed down. I calmed down. And that's where I would tell you that, you sort of wonder, why is it important to chant, And why, chanting has to be second nature to you. Because when you're in that state, your mind keeps going. You cannot, it's very difficult to hold your thought. And I was struggling to chant on that day. I remembered very clearly, the simple chants that I'll do for myself would be, one, to call my name. And that's something that's taught to me, because if you call your name, you bring your presence of mind to yourself. So I was trying to call my name. Just call my name, Chong Wei Tatt. The other chant I was trying to do was Iti Pu So. At that point, you don't try to be too ambitious. You can, even you can sustain an ATP, so you can keep it going. You find that you can actually maintain your mind. You can actually at least feel that you're not wandering. So that day was very, very difficult for me. But I after the chanting, I managed to regain, managed to do my ATP, so managed to call my name. I managed to pass that gap. The second day was completely different. Second day after that, all my vitals were up. From that day onwards, every single day I started getting better. A week after that, I think they took me off my dialysis. Soon after that, they took the tubes off my dialysis. Soon after that, they took off the respiratory machine. Soon after that, they took off the tubes that were connected to me intravenously for me to have my injections every day. I think within a 3 or 4 week period, I recovered. From that very day. So again, I mean, there's a combination of spiritual guidance. There's a combination of putting our practice into practice, and the doctors, together, all of that actually helped me pass through the gap and recover. So so all along the way, I when I got better, then I can start actually reflecting on the more sort of other areas of my practice. For example, if you look at the 10 parameters, you see letting go is one of them. Being able to practice patience. If you're in the hospital, you have to practice a lot of patience. You're in the bed, you cannot do anything by yourself. Days become hours, becomes days become weeks turn into months. You have to be equanimous about it. When you have to think about things like amputations or things that are very difficult, how it affects you, how it affects people around you, you have to step back and you have to look at things, in a very objective manner, you know, and equanimity is that, you need to practice that. Yeah? You have to radiate a lot of metta, both on yourself, your body, as well as, all the seen and unseen, around you. Because, so, like every night, we would chant Metta Sutta, and we would actually, practice metta meditation, and then, we go through the whole thing, bring to self, radiate metta, let it radiate into the hospital, into the ICU room, into the wards, into the hospital, being seen, unseen, and like you really, at the end of it, you really feel, good, you feel, somehow comfortable, you feel a sense that, you feel a sense of love, not just for yourself, but for others as well. Yeah. And I think, like that practice that we had every day really, helped me in terms of, I slept really well. Yeah? And strangely enough, that's one of the teachings in the Metta Sutta, that, if you radiate metta and you practice it well, one of the direct benefits is that you will sleep well. And I slept well, despite the pain, despite the discomfort, despite the fact that I've been lying there, for 5 weeks in the same bed, not being able to move, I slept well. Yeah. Yeah. Everything happens for a reason, yeah? Now, these are some of my novitiate photos. This was 2007. Yeah? That's me as a novice monk. Yeah? And my these 4 Dhamma brothers, strangely enough, I just reconnected with them again recently. Yeah? And okay, this was me in ICU. Like you can imagine, that's that's the leg. Yeah? I had a fixator on my leg, yeah. ICU bed, you can see I can barely move my leg there, yeah. So this was I think that's my sister. You can hear my sister's voice there. She was, just the fact that I can move my leg a bit was a big success. That's the size of my wound, yeah. And I had this wound on both sides of my leg. Yeah? The dressing was every alternate day, and this was where I was telling you, the meditation on my breath really helped. Bandages, you see. Every day I would be bleeding out. You see the red underneath. So despite the fact that I had bandages, even when I was actually in the wards, they had to make sure that I had enough blood. That's Dr. Said, my orthopedic surgeon. Incredibly compassionate person, and although he's a Malay doctor, he speaks perfect Hokkien. So I think, that's why I think I felt very comfortable in that hospital. That's my family, yeah. So whenever you have times of crisis, you know what? What really matters is your family and your friends. Yeah, they will be the ones to be next to you. This is towards the later part of my recovery, yeah. So you can see I'm starting to sit up, yeah. And again, this was I think 2 weeks before I left the hospital. So the hair is growing quite a fair bit because I hadn't had a chance to cut my hair since the accident. Okay, so meditation, calm mind, face of adversity, high-paced threshold, radiate matter internally, seeking forgiveness. That's another important part of the practice, till this day, I don't blame anybody. I accept my karma. Yeah. This is something that I came to terms with very, without question. Yeah? I immediately, at some point, I thought that I was not going to make it. I really sought an effort to seek forgiveness, my parents, my father, people that I loved, and people that I could not see, I basically, seek forgiveness in my heart. Letting go, things like this happen, you cannot really do much. So letting go, no feelings of regrets, and always being present and moving forward. Okay, this is one word that kept resonating in my mind. Precious human life. Yeah. You go to any basic Dhamma talk of any tradition, this is usually one of the first things that they talk about, the precious human life. Yeah. In the Theravada tradition, they always tell the story about how difficult it is to be reborn as a human being, and there's always the story about the turtle that surfaces from the seabed every 1,000 years, and it's like throwing like a live buoy, and how likely it is for the turtle to come through the live buoy, right? Yeah. So in Tibetan traditions, they have a lot of stories, but they always start this: why is human life so important? Yeah? Kept me going because I kept thinking, I have a human life, I want to continue my practice, and that kept me going. There's also a feeling of abundance. When you're in a hospital, my situation might be bad, but strangely, that during that week where I was in Ampang Putri, and then the news during that time was MH370, and you saw the thing, and life is so uncertain. I'm lucky that I'm still alive. I'm still in this bed. There are people who just bought a plane without knowing, thinking that they're going on a holiday, and you don't know what happens. So the feelings of abundance is always important. And also, the other reason human precious life is important is reminds us of the importance of practice. You never know when we are going to go. Mind is the forerunner of all things. Again, this is again, very fundamental within the. Even in the Sunday school they will teach this. Like the mind is the forerunner of all things from the Dhammapada. So being able to bring the mind back to the calm state, staying positive, avoiding negative thoughts, being able to appreciate and accept prayers and positive energy from others. Okay. So the mind is important. Yeah. Our teachers, again, I've mentioned a few, Bhante Mahinda, my gurus, my parents, they're all my teachers, and we have to show a sense of gratitude to them, recall their teaching, and again, I've given the examples of the guidance I received from my teachers during my recovery. This was online, some of the prayer groups. Again, you can see, like nowadays is they set up chats groups within like WhatsApp, and then people can connect, and even people from, although they are not geographically in the same place, they can still connect at the same time. Again, the paramis in terms of some of the things that I sort of reflected on, and what is important in life, not work, not money, not education, not what we have, family, friends. Simple practice like avoiding evil, doing good, purify the mind. Again, this word kept popping out in my mind, and this is, a tribute to our late Chief Kesri Dhammananda. Life is uncertain, death is certain. It never strikes you more profoundly than when you're actually, hanging there, and this kept coming up to me, I did contemplate. One of the things we do practice is contemplation of death. Yeah? We don't like to do it, but then during the novitiate, we did have to practice it, and basically, you realize how important it is, because it is going to happen, to every single one of us, but don't know when. So again, I think one of the things that I remembered in my practice is like, when we die, what's important and what's going to determine the next rebirth is our karma and the last thought in our mind. And I think, if you're in a hospital bed and you are confused and you start thinking of all sorts of bad things, it's not a good state to be going in. Yeah. So I know it's morbid. Nobody likes to talk about this, but it is important. Yeah. So I think that sort of concludes my sharing. Yeah. I have a lot more to share in terms of details, but in the interest of time, Sadhu. Thank you. Thank you.